The Fox City SCORE chapter and WHBY are pleased to bring you Biz Talk, a chance for you to hear from entrepreneurs and professionals as they share their experiences from starting to sustaining growth. Learn the skills needed for your business to be successful. If you missed anything, you can catch the Biz Talk podcast at biztalkwithscore.com. And now from the Myron Construction Studio, it's Biz Talk on WHBY.
Good morning and welcome to Biz Talk, brought to you by SCORE. And we will talk more about SCORE and later in the show. But for now, I'm going to introduce you first to the guest host this week. Joining us as a repeat guest host is John Drengler. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, Terry. Thanks for having me back.
And thanks for being here. And now we'll move on to our guest. And we have an excellent guest who actually does some work as a SCORE volunteer as well, but she's got a great business. That's her full-time focus. And we'd like to introduce Honor Jensen from Thriving with Honor. Honor, welcome to the show.
Hi, Terry. Thank you. Hi, John.
Thanks.
Hi.
Okay, let's start, Honor, just with the background. Where did you come from, and how did you get to the point where you started Thriving with Honor?
So I came from a world of about 25 years in human resources, and I kind of flipped around in a bunch of different industries, from manufacturing, health insurance, health and wellness, nonprofit, product development. So kind of a wide variety. And during that time, what I really, really loved about what I did was the whole organizational and personal development piece. Very early in my career, I learned about the 7 habits of highly effective people, and I got to facilitate those and lead people through those seminars and workshops. And it sort of planted a seed in me that I love personal development. I love business and how those two things kind of come together. And I had the great opportunity to work with other businesses and business leaders to try to figure out, how do we solve business problems? And then what I found is, as you solve those, if it's a personal development thing, it impacts people's personal lives and makes them really better people and unleash their full potential. And so throughout the years, I got to play in that field for a lot of time. And what I found was that's what I really loved. And there's a lot of other HR stuff, which was actually really good. And I enjoyed it, but I kind of didn't anymore. It's really important stuff, but I just didn't want to do it anymore. Long story is, I was sort of exploring what it might look like to not be employed by somebody doing HR. And I decided to start a business. It wasn't exactly coaching at the time. I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do human resources consulting because that's what I knew and that's what people knew me as. But I found that I was doing those projects that I left corporate America for in the first place. And I wasn't doing what I really enjoyed. And so I learned about coaching and met some coaches and said, this is what I need to do. And so, yeah, it sort of evolved over a long period of time, but then happened really fast, if that makes any sense.
So if you look at the subsection of HR that is coaching, what proportion was it of your job when you were an HR professional?
Well, it was probably more than I realized, because the more experience I had, the more I realized that many conversations where people would come to me and say, hey, Honor, how do I help this employee? They're just not maybe meeting expectations. Or an employee comes in and says, I hate my boss. What am I going to do? A lot of times I was HR and I'm here to help, right? But what I realized is that's not really what they wanted. They didn't want me to give them the answers. They wanted a safe space to process what was going on and figure out the answers themselves. We have a lot more potential than we think we do. And as a leader, it's really our job to explore that potential with someone instead of giving them the answers all of the time. So that's a long answer to say it could have been a whole lot more. And I would say no matter if you're HR or a leader in any other area, probably 80% should really be coaching instead of telling people what to do or solving their problems
Honor,
for them.
in the coaching and from your work experience, what were some of the hot button issues that you saw that kind of led to this is coming up over and over again and really does require some coaching support and help? What were some of those things?
Well, there's a lot. I think it changed over the years, and it changed based on who you were talking to. So talking with executives, a lot of the stuff was, how do I take this goal or maybe this strategy that we spent thousands and thousands of dollars on a consultant to help us come up with our next business strategy and then put it on a shelf? How do we take that and put it into action so that 3 years or whatever the magic number is, it wasn't something you pulled off the shelf, dusted off and said, oh yeah, we better hurry up. We've got 6 months left out of our 3-year plan. And so instead of all of that work of the tasks that you need to do to implement those strategies, it's really more working on how do you become an organization and a person who can achieve those things. And it's more than doing. It's about a sense of being. How do I show up? What do I need to learn? What kinds of relationships do I need to build? That is really the missing key, I think, that most of the leadership team had. It was usually a check the box. And how come people can't do the thing we tell them to do? Well, it's because it's a lot more than knowing. It's about how you show up, how you understand, how you see yourself, how that aligns with your own values. And quite frankly, how do the leaders align with the values that are written on the walls? So that was a really big thing, and that incorporates a lot of stuff. The other thing I think we're finding more and more now is that people are more comfortable being vulnerable and saying, you know what, I'm not okay. I need help. I'm under a lot of stress. And in the world of leadership in business, a lot of times that's very uncomfortable territory for leaders. I'm not supposed to be in their personal business, or I'm not a therapist, or frankly, I just don't want to worry about that. I got my own problems. And so being able to coach through that and recognize when that's your lane and when it's not is really a big challenge. And then I guess the last one, so I like 3s, and that is our job as a leader is to unleash potential. And if you look at everybody in your team, in your organization, as already being fully whole as a human, fully resourceful, and fully capable, then the way you can help them is very different than, well, they don't know and they need me to answer their question for them. So that's it. 3.
Okay. Let's go to what happened when you decided to start your own business. So you're in HR. How did you learn about, I got to set up an LLC, I've got to do all these administrative tasks? Was it trial by doing, or how did you go about learning?
Well, I wish I could tell you that I knew about SCORE and I just tapped right into them and I had a great, resource there, but I didn't. If I did, I think that would have been a little bit different. Ultimately, it was look it up online, find out somebody who started their business. I don't know if it's Tony Robbins or Jack Canfield or somebody said that success leaves clues. And so really it was who's already doing this thing and what did they do, and try to copy that. I also love research. So one of the things that I did was just Google it. How do you start it? What do you need to do? And some of my coaching school stuff did talk a little bit about that and point you in the right direction.
Yeah, one interesting comment I'll add is when I became a SCORE volunteer, I'd already done a lot of research and was used to it. So going online and just asking, well, how do I look into starting a property management company in Wisconsin? Now you got to make sure you get the right places. But I was always amazed that I could find 99% of what I needed online. I just had to be able to filter it and then find the right people to double check with. And I think a lot of people think the answers aren't there, but it's amazing in today's world if you do the right research and do the right networking where you can find the answers. So,
and you said something really important. Double check to make sure it's right.
Yep.
There's a lot of bad information out there too.
Yeah, especially if you go to social media, believe it's wrong and then you're in a better position. But start and double check, make sure it makes sense. So you've learned how to start it up. How did you find clients?
So there's a lot of different ways. So for me, it was one relationship at a time. And one thing that I learned was that you already, no matter who you are, what your business is, you already have a network. It might be family or extended family. It might be friends. It might be somebody that you used to work with or, worked with recently, whether it be a client or a vendor or an old boss from 20 years ago. And the first thing you need to do is just start where you are. Talk to the people you already know. Maybe they could be a client, but they also might know somebody. And if you already have those relationships, it makes it pretty easy because, quite frankly, we don't want to work. And coaching's not like a $50, here you go, let's see if it works. It's kind of expensive depending on who you're working with and what you're working on. So you need to have a relationship. And that's really the first key, is start with the relationships you have. If they're going to introduce you to their friends, you've already got a level of trust that you wouldn't have if you just walked up to a stranger on the corner. So it's really working the network that you already have and letting that grow is really the first step, I think, for anyone, regardless of what your business is.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit more now about the services you offered. We talk about coaching generally, but what are some of the specific things you offer to clients?
So coaching is really broad. So that's a great question. I'm not a health coach. I'm not a sports coach. And sometimes people get confused on that. My good LinkedIn spammers, they like to say, hey, I'd love to teach you how to be a better health coach. I'm not a health coach. So I actually help people grow their businesses. So as a business growth catalyst, what I really do is help people remove the complexity and the chaos and the inner critic that keeps them from growing their business as rapidly as they really deserve it to be. And what happens then is they get the freedom back to choose how they spend their time and their money, because they have more time, they have more money when they take out all the noise. So that's what I help people do. Now, I also know that, a lot of the clients that I work with in my business are really around for that first cycle of, okay, I figured out how to make a marketing plan. I figured out how to do all of those things, and I have some of the foundation, but I sort of made it up as I went along. And now it's time to really build a strong foundation. So what I help people do is, one, talk through the inner critic of, back to the how do you find clients? My uncle's not going to want to talk to me, or who in the world would want to introduce me what do they think I know? So all of that inner critic noise, that imposter syndrome that we hear about all the time, I help people confront it, not just stifle it down, because if you ignore it, it just gets bigger. What we resist persists and grows. So what I try to help you do is to recognize it and work with it. And there's a whole process to that. And then part of it is also just, how do you build a business? Let's get down to the foundational pieces and, fill in the blanks that you don't know. You might, and really, I think people know a lot more than they give themselves credit for. Now, I'll use an example of a marketing plan, right? So, how do you create clients? I worked with a coach, and she's like, I just don't know how. And we talked about meeting people and networking and social media. We talked about all those things. She said, no, I hate it all. Well, what do you like doing? I love public speaking. How many people love public speaking? So that was awesome. So I said, how do you get in front of more people and use that platform as a way to serve people, add a ton of value, and create clients? And that was her thing. She's like, all right, I can do that. That's really fun. And so she created a lot of clients based on her public speaking. So she doesn't even have a website, but she's got a great business. So that's what I help people do. Find what works for them so that they can be authentic and not salesy, if you will, in growing your business. Because let's be honest, I think this is an elephant. If you're an entrepreneur, you are a salesperson. Otherwise, your business is not going to survive. Yeah. So you have to come to grips with that.
Okay, we're at the spot for our first break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back. We're glad you joined us this morning for Biz Talk. Our guest is Honor Jensen, business and life coach and owner of Thriving with Honor. Before continuing our conversation, I'd like to tell you a little bit about SCORE Fox Cities. The local Fox Cities chapter supports an 8-county area from Appleton to Fond du Lac and Wapaka to Montello. We have about 35 volunteer mentors, each an expert in their field, offering entrepreneurs no cost and confidential mentoring, whether those people are serving consumers or business to business. Our areas of mentoring include strategic planning, sales and marketing, IT and social media, finance and accounting, cash flow, asset and workflow management, best practice sharing, and human resource development, just as you're hearing this morning from our business guest and fellow mentor, Honor Jensen. In order to register for a no-cost confidential mentoring session and learn more about Fox Cities SCORE chapter, please visit our website at score.org/Fox Cities. You can learn how SCORE can assist you with starting or growing your business. Simply fill out the online form and submit it to SCORE. Within a few days, a mentor will contact you to set up a meeting. Remember, SCORE is no cost, and we offer experts who can assist in many different areas of your business. So to get started, just visit our website. And SCORE Fox Cities is always looking for new mentors and subject matter experts. If you have experience that you'd like to share with small business owners who are either starting or looking to grow, we'd love to talk to you. We welcome volunteers with expertise in all aspects of business. Small business owners need your help, and your experience can make a real difference in their success. Again, go to our website, score.org/Fox Cities. Click on the volunteer button and fill out the short application. We'll happily get back to you to discuss further. So thanks again for joining us on BizTalk. And now back to our conversation with Honor. Honor, one of the things that you and Terry were talking about before the break were just the services, et cetera. But as part of this, I imagine you employ a number of different assessment and diagnostic tools. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, different coaches do different things. Some people like Strengths Finders or Myers-Briggs or something, and I don't do those. In fact, if somebody wanted it, I usually work with another coach and say, hey, here. There's really two main ways that I do assessments. One is it's called a PQ test, or a saboteur assessment. So it's developed by Shirzad Chamine, and he's a Stanford lecturer dude, and he wrote this book called Positive Intelligence. And what it really does is it says there's really 10 ways we sabotage ourselves. Everybody has this master saboteur of the judge, where we're always judging ourselves or other people or our circumstances. And then there's 9 others. And not all of them are really going to hurt me, but usually there's like 2 or 3 at the top that join forces with this master judge and self-sabotage. It might be like a controller or a hyperachiever or a victim or whatever. And so what I help people do is take this assessment, and it helps you to see what are those top saboteurs. And then it gives you some tools to say, all right, so what is the strength behind it? And how can we recognize when those things are happening and get out of our own way? So when I talked earlier about conquering that inner critic and quieting that so that we can, speed the growth of our business, it's usually those inner critics or those ways we speak to ourselves that hold us back more than anything else. So that's one assessment, and it's free. It's just I can give you a link. It's kind of cool, and you get a really great report and some things you can do with it. The other assessment that I do is really more on the business side, and I partner with, or I'm powered by, Business Made Simple, and it's called the My Business Report. I can send you a link to it. Again, it's free. And what it does is it asks you a whole bunch of questions about your business in 6 key areas. Talks about your marketing, your sales, your products, your leadership, your operations, and the overhead. And then, of course, cash flow, right? And it asks you basic questions, takes about 10 or 15 minutes to fill out. And then you get this amazing report. Again, it's free, that tells you these are some areas that you can work on. Here's where your strengths are. And oh, by the way, here's some resources that you can use in order to do that. What I like to do after you take those assessments is just meet with you and go through it. What does it mean? How do you interpret it? And what do you do about it? And why is it important? How does it align with your goals? So those are the formal assessments that I do. And when I work with businesses, like I said, sometimes they like others, and I'll partner with, Strength Finder people or whatever they like.
As I mentioned in the announcement coming back from the break, you are also a mentor volunteer for SCORE. How do you complement or factor that in with your business and offer your help to small businesses through SCORE?
So one thing I learned early on when I was building my business was that a lot of people would come to me at the early stages. Maybe they're in the first year or two of their business. But that really wasn't who I was seeking to serve. However, I think that's so important. If you don't have somebody to help you get started, you're never going to get to the 3 to 5 year range or beyond, right? And so, couple of things really is I thought, wow, if I would have known about SCORE when I got started, I would have probably been able to start a lot faster, speed up that learning curve if I had somebody to walk alongside. And I'm like, I would love to give back. And so that's really one way I'm like, if I know a little bit about business, it's what I do. So maybe I can help somebody grow theirs.
And how do you, what do you find with new clients that people are just starting up their business where you can make a real difference just sticking to the coaching side for now? How do you really help them as they're thinking about starting a new business?
So are we talking the SCORE people? Or?
Yeah, the SCORE people.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. So the mentor and a coach are different modalities, a lot of similarities, but the difference is a mentor sits and tells you, this is what I know. This is what worked for me or other people I know. These are some things to watch out for. A mentor gives you advice. A coach says, what do you think? And it puts the spotlight, if you will, off of me, but helps the other person look at how they're showing up in the world, what they already know. And so I kind of mold those two things together, because if you already know, let's say you're starting a jewelry business. I don't know about jewelry. I don't know about all that kind of stuff. I can't really mentor you in who you need to contact for vendors and things like that, because that's not my expertise. But where I come in is there's a lot of concern about, well, how do I sell this at a price that is fair? How do I, it's not so much how, but how do I believe in myself? Pricing is a really big thing that I think new entrepreneurs come in all of the time. Like, who am I to ask X number of dollars for this thing? Who's going to pay for that? And that's all a mental game. It's how you see money in your life. So if you have a money scarcity, you're always going to feel maybe guilty or icky about asking for money. I worked with a client once and she's like, I actually don't want to tell people how much I make, because if friends and family find out how much I ask, they're going to know how much I make. And when they know how much I make, they're going to think that I'm snobby. They're going to think that I'm rich. They're going to think all these things. I'm like, why would they think that? And it's just the story, the money story that she had. And it's not just her. It's pretty much everybody. They carry this money story with them. So it's what's getting in the way. What are the really big blocks? That's what we talk through. That's the coaching side of it, the mental blocks. And sometimes it's I need to learn something. Sometimes it's I need to get over some internal chatter.
Okay, so we're at the spot for our second break. You're listening to Biz Talk with SCORE and WHBY, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Biz Talk with SCORE. This week we're talking to Honor Jensen from Thriving with Honor. And before we get back to Honor, I want to talk to you about opportunity that SCORE has coming up in the fall. It's our second year for running this program, but it's called Accelerate Your Business for Women. And we ran it last year, and the show sold out, and it was really well received. And so we're running it again with other chapters across Wisconsin. This year it's being held on September 30th at the Kalahari Conference Center in Wisconsin Dells. There will be speakers, networking, learning opportunities, focusing on things like marketing, technology, life skills, etc. So again, it sold out last year, and it's a really good opportunity to network with other women volunteers. I had several people I know attend, and they said they got a lot out of it. So again, it's Accelerate Your Business for Women. Oh, by the way, men are welcome to attend too, but the focus is Accelerate Your Business for Women. It'll be September 30th at Kalahari Conference Center, and you can register by going to score.org/Fox Cities. And on the front page of that website, you will find a posting for the conference, and you can go and register for a small fee there. And there's some great sponsors already lined up. There's some guests that are coming along for speaking and leading segments and things. So really looking forward to it. And again, it's September 30th. So with that, we're going to turn back to Honor. And now, Honor, we want to talk a little bit more about some of the things you've learned and what you do to help your clients when you're working with them in specific areas. And one of them that stood out for me is something I think everybody or most people experience at some point in their career, and it's burnout. How do you help one of your clients understand, one, that they're facing burnout and how to work through it?
Really good question. I'm going to say that I probably am going to give you kind of an edgy answer that not a lot of people like. So ultimately, I think everybody knows when they're burned out. It's just something you feel. Your energy is really low. You maybe have I don't want to show up anymore on Monday morning, or what have I really done? And everything's kind of like, it's a feeling that people know. But here's my edgy kind of look at it. I think that burnout is actually a choice. And what I mean by that is it's often an unconscious choice, but it's about putting what matters least ahead of everything that matters most. And when you're burned out, it's because you're not prioritizing what's most important in your life. If you don't have a clear direction, if you don't have a clear purpose for your life, but also for your business, you're just going to be doing busy work. And that busy work, if you remember that idea of the 80-20 rule, where 20% of the effort that you give brings 80% of the results, right? But most of the time, what people are doing is spending the time on the little stuff. Well, I just want to be able to check all those items off my list, right? But the things that you're checking off your list aren't making a very big difference. Here's what I see. So a lot of entrepreneurs like, oh, I have to have a great social media presence. And so I'm so excited about getting all my LinkedIn posts and stuff like that. Well, okay, if you do a LinkedIn post and it goes out and 100 people see it, maybe one person will interact with you. I'm just making those numbers up. Don't follow me. But in a comparison, if instead of spending an hour creating this beautiful LinkedIn post, I picked up the phone and I called someone and said, hi, I'm Honor. How are you doing? How can I help? Whatever the thing is that you do to make your sales calls, guess what? That person is going to be more likely to respond to you than some random person who isn't asked. Hey, do you want to have a conversation? So it might be scarier, but that phone call is the one that's going to create results, not necessarily all the time that you spend on LinkedIn. So many people are afraid to talk to humans, but if you want to create a business, you have to talk to humans. You can't hide behind your email and things like that. And so the long story to that is, if I'm doing just emails and I'm doing just social media and I'm not talking to human beings, I'm probably going to have a really hard time creating results. And when I'm not creating results, I start to feel like a failure. And I start to feel like what I'm doing isn't making a difference. And the truth is it's not. So when you're burned out, take a look at what's most important. What are the key action items that you need to do in order to create that result? Maybe it's more peace in your life. Maybe it's greater sales, but don't take on the entire world. The other thing I would say, and I like to walk through a process where when you create your goals, let's say you have 12 goals that you want to create through the whole year. So what happens, and I'm just going to have a conversation. What happens when you create 12 goals that you need to work on for the whole year?
You don't have any priorities.
You don't have any priorities, so maybe you get some of them done okay, right? Mm-hmm. But let's say you took 3 goals for the next 3 months and you just focused on that. Everything else let go. You're going to get those 3 goals done a lot better and a lot farther than you would. So now you can pick up 3 more later and 3 more later. So if you just focus with laser attention on no more than 3 things, you will actually get more done in a year than you would if you tried to get all of them done at the same time. And you would do them with greater excellence. There's no example of when that's not true. But we all tell ourselves, and again, this goes to the lie of, well, I'm special, right? Yes, you are special. Don't get me wrong. But in this particular case, you have to focus. Focus is what creates your results. And sometimes here's what I hear. Well, I don't want to focus. If you really dig in, how come you really need 12? What if that one fails? What if the 3 that I'm working on don't work? Well, my friends, all 12 of them aren't going to work if you try to get them all done at the same time. and you'll burn out because you don't have enough energy. So there's my story on burnout. Choose your priorities.
Something related to that as you talked, it's, life is 98% journey, 2% results. I got that from something you had written. And that seems to fit into that too. Why is that important to you, and how do you tell people to think about that?
So I think of Jim Rohn. If nobody's heard of him, just find him. He's amazing. But he said something to the effect of the reason why we create goals is to entice us to become the person it takes to achieve them. Not to check the list and say, okay, I ran a marathon, check. I did this, check. This isn't a bucket list of things to go through life, but who do we want to become in the process? Well, I want to become more creative. I want to become more patient with people. I want to become more, I want to be able to create, I already said creative. So there's like, what do you want to become? It's qualities that help us to become. I want to be more admired. I want to be more known. It's what do you want to become? And you have to go through the journey. You have to go through the journey. And if you only focus on the outcome, then when you get there, what's going to happen? Okay, what's next? It doesn't last. But when you look at the journey and how you've learned, what you've become, the person, the people you've met, the quality, the characteristics, the experiences, that's what fills a life. Not, did I make $1 million? Did I run a marathon? Did I whatever? Who you become in the process.
So Honor, those things, and talking about setting goals and priorities and about the journey of life in your business, obviously it's not just about fixing things here and now. You want this to be sustainable in your, as an employee, as a family member, as a sole proprietor in a business. What sort of metrics are needed or feedback loops to help people remind themselves? Because part of goals and priorities is, have you achieved them? So are there tools or ways to coach and help people that there's milestones involved and things that they know they've accomplished a step and they can build upon that to go further? Are there ways to reflect on that you find? Versus just saying, I feel better and I have better balance. That sounds really good, but unless you can put a metric on that, do you really know you're moving forward the way you should?
Yeah. So one activity that I do every single month, and I always invite my clients to start when they start and to continue, is something basic. It's called a life wheel. It's nothing I created. It's like a coaching tool. But what it does is it takes your life and it breaks it into 8 primary areas. And it's a wheel, or you could do it anywhere, but mine's a wheel. And you, from a score of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you in those areas? And you just rate yourself. And sometimes you might see that, financially, I'm maybe a 5. Health-wise, maybe I'm a 2. My home environment, maybe I'm a 10, right? And if it's all kind of all over the place like that, you don't really have a lot of balance in your life. And that's okay, but it helps you to see, like, if my health is a 2, how is that going to impact the rest of my life? So it's very subjective. There is no, magic number like dollars or something like that. It is very subjective. But then what I like to have people do, especially at the beginning of every year, is to take that same concept of those life wheels and say, imagine yourself standing at the top of a 10. Everything is perfect and wonderful. What would that look like? So you're very specific about, if I think my marriage or my relationship is great, what does that mean? If my business is great, what does that mean? What is showing up in there? And really imagining yourself that way. That's a really powerful tool. The other thing I would say, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of it, but I have this acronym that I use, and it's called Becoming. So we're becoming the kind of person, right? So it's almost a measurement of what do you believe? So the B is believe in possibility, like I believe I can do it. The E is to edit your environment. So how do I need to order my environment so that it supports my goals? Maybe it's the people, the places, the things in my life that help me live towards my goal. If I'm hanging around with people who hate their job, who hate their boss and complain about that all the time, I'm probably not in the right group because I'm a boss and I want to be successful. So, think about the people. The C is to commit to the journey. And we talked about the journey. So it is a commitment. So if your goal is to run a great business, you've got to commit to all the ups and downs. So really thinking about what that journey looks like. The O is to occupy the vision. So let's say in 10 years, I have this vision for my company. I want to have more than one location. I want whatever the thing is, right? To occupy that vision means to imagine yourself already there. What would that experience be like? And the truth is, most of the time, there are some elements of that vision that's already in your life today. And if you're missing that, if you're not paying attention to it, then you're never, ever going to get there. So it's taking the vision and, kind of the law of attraction in there, but it's also what is already there. So the O, BECOM. M is to manage the moments. So that's creating a plan and a strategy, but it's also practicing integrity in the moment of choice. I get to spend a couple hours on this project or go golfing. You got to choose, right? Integrity is, if I promised myself I would do this, I got to do it. So I is to ignite courage. There's courage and that's part of who you become. So we were not made to be timid people. We were made to be courageous, and we just have to practice our courageous muscle. So the I. The N is to negotiate the cost. There is a cost involved. If you're saying yes to your business, there's something you're saying no to. You have to be happy with what that is. If you're not, then you got to kind of negotiate there. And then the G is to grant yourself grace because you are going to screw up a million times. And also to have gratitude for what you do have for the process. So I don't know if that's really a measurement, but I like to think about that in terms of this is a measure of, am I becoming the kind of person that I want to be as I achieve this goal? Otherwise, you burn yourself out.
Well, as you talk, a couple things I've been thinking about is when you're coaching somebody, one of your goals is to help them build scale, but another goal is also how to build a life they love. How do you build balance into that coaching so that they understand they have to build balance?
Mm-hmm. So can you ask the question in just a little bit different way? I'm not sure if I...
Sure. You can either build your business and spend all your time doing that, or you can build your life and spend all your time doing that, or you seek a middle ground. How do you do that? How do you coach people to do that in the right way, keeping both in mind?
Okay. So it isn't like a step-by-step how-to, but really it goes back to your mindset. Do you have an abundance mentality or do you have a fixed mindset? Carol Dweck talks about this. But when I think about that, I think about yes and. I love to play this game with my clients. It's a yes and game. So it's not like you have to choose business or pleasure, business or family. And balance isn't about getting the right and the right, nobody can see me. What am I doing? Like a little scale, right? It's not necessarily about the scale. It's about what do you really want? What's important? And how can you say yes and to something? Yes, I would love to go to all of my kids' basketball games and build a strong business. You can do both without burning yourself at both ends. So it starts with that personal mission, that personal, what's the most important thing to me? And then you build your business in that. The thing is, if you focus on what's most important and you get rid of all that noise, like I talked about that 80-20, it's a lot easier than you think. There are going to be seasons. So we also talk about what are the seasons. I have some clients who are like, my parents they're old and they're sick and, I got to take care of them too. And that's a real thing. So it's honoring your life and what's really most important. And most of the time people are like, it's okay if I choose both. And it's about giving yourself permission. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in there, but a lot of times it's just, what do you really want? What's the most important thing? And then I said before, what are you saying no to if you say yes to this thing? Is that important? A lot of times it's not. So, in a 2 minute. in a 2-minute segment, it's really hard to answer that question, but you kind of get the gist. It's talking about how you are in the world, not just what are the checkbox items and time management systems you use.
Okay. Honor, the things you're saying in that balance that you and Terry are talking about, I can picture myself in a large corporation, part of a team, finding those balance and those reasons. Many of the people we service through SCORE are sole proprietors, or if they have employees, it might be one or two. Kind of keep in context everything you said. There's a sense of urgency. That sole proprietor is thinking, if I don't do this right or do it all myself, it might fail. And I would think finding balance takes on a bit of a different shape and form versus someone in a bigger company. What sort of nuances do you reflect on when you're dealing with someone like that?
So it's different for everyone. Here's something that comes up a lot. If you're a sole proprietor, if you're the business person, the first thing I tell you, and this is going to be weird, but get your personal finances in order first. Because if you are afraid that if your business is going to fail, that you're not going to be able to pay your bills, then you're going to have a scarcity mentality and you're going to be needy. And a coach once told me, needy is creepy. Can you please do business with me or I won't be able to keep my mortgage, right? People feel that energy. Obviously, you're never going to say that, but people feel that energy. So if you're going to start a business, I would say you need to take your personal finances or, maybe it's a small business loan, maybe it's something, but you need to create a personal financial plan too. I always say 3 to 6 months of salary. So that you can go at least, and if you're an entrepreneur, let's just face it, it should be a 12 months, right? And work yourself into it. Sometimes you just have to take a part-time job, run Uber, whatever. I don't care, but get an income where you're not freaked out about it. That takes a lot of stress off. So, maybe you can't just jump in full time.
Okay. So unfortunately, there's a lot more to talk there, but we're going to have to take our final break. You're listening to Biz Talk with SCORE and WHBY, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Biz Talk with SCORE. I'd like to thank the sponsors and donors who bring Biz Talk with SCORE to you each weekend. We couldn't present Biz Talk without their generous support. Thank you to Hailing & Associates. Hailing & Associates helps small businesses and individuals not just prepare tax returns, but plan for taxes, thereby helping you minimize taxes for this year and beyond. Hailing & Associates, personal connection, positive results. A special thank you to the Business News for promoting our program in the biweekly business news paper serving Northeast Wisconsin. If you aren't already subscribing to the Business News, you should. The paper is delivered biweekly and contains relevant and useful information about the business community in Northeast Wisconsin. We would also like to recognize the David L. and Rita E. Nelson Fund within the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region for their generous donation and support of Biz Talk and Fox City SCORE. That will turn back to Honor. And Honor, could you let people know how they could find you and contact you to maybe talk to you about getting some assistance?
Absolutely. You can find me on my website. It's www.thrivingwithhonor.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Honor Jensen, and you can call me at 920-819-1905. Just love to sit down and have a conversation and see if we can help.
Okay. And in this last minute or two, we know you've added a new segment to your business offerings as a session or a course called Cultivating a Business Culture. Could you talk a little bit about what that is and how people can find out about it?
Yeah, so Cultivated Coaching Culture is about enriching your culture to unleash the potential in your people. And as I was in human resources, what I realized was that what most people really need is coaching, but nobody teaches us how to coach. Very few people receive that training. And so what we do is we listen really well, and then we give people our sage advice. And what that does is it stifles potential, which has a huge financial impact on your business. And it also makes people kind of disgruntled. Like, work with a micromanager and all of those kinds of things. And it's all because we think we're helping, but really we're stifling. So it helps to bridge that gap. And it also helps to talk about, okay, how do we build a culture without like, hey, this is our culture, read it, it's on the wall, but rather by what we repeatedly and consistently and predictably do. And ultimately it's building a coaching habit. So it gives you all of those skills to do that.
Okay. So Honor, it's been a great opportunity to learn from you today. You do things that are pretty unique for many of the guests and mentors that we have within SCORE, and we really appreciate the opportunity to learn from you. And for our listeners out there, as you're starting a business, we always recommend you go to get a SCORE mentor. But as you grow, one of the biggest benefits you could get as you're learning how to grow that business is get a coach. Get somebody who can come in and really help you and make a difference to your business growth. And it will make a difference to your personal life. It'll really help you be happier with who you are and where you go. Can't say strongly enough how big a value I got out of coaching in my career. It really made a difference. And so we're really glad that Honor was able to come on the show today and talk about the things that we're doing. So everybody, thank you very much. It's been a good show this week. If you want to listen to it again, it will be on our website in a couple weeks. But you can also go to our website, biztalkwithscore.com, and you can find shows from the last 6 years out there as well. So thanks, everybody, and have a great week.